This is a true story, or at least the parts they failed to erase. Between 1993 and 2008, a chilling pattern emerged across the quiet, forgotten corners of America. Hundreds of people, from different states, separated by years, all shared the same fate. Tebani said. The last thing anyone knew, they were answering an ad. An ad that promised easy money. Clinical trials, vague phrases like consciousness research. No experience needed, no questions asked. For those who were desperate, it was a lifeline. But for those who responded, that lifeline was cut within days. Bank accounts went dormant. Phones stopped ringing. No bodies were ever found. For years, police dismissed them as runaways, transient souls moving on. But the numbers kept climbing. Soon, they became impossible to ignore. The group behind the ads called themselves the Ascension Circle. To the outside world, they were a harmless spiritual wellness collective. They offered meditation retreats, detox programs, and workshops on self. They preached about finding a higher self, but unofficially, what happened behind closed doors was a descent into a nightmare. Former members, those who managed to break free, spoke in hushed, terrified tones. They described rituals that had nothing to do with wellness. They talked about surgical tables in cold, sterile rooms. They remembered leather restraints and the low, rhythmic chants that were timed to the sound of screams. The full, horrifying truth was eventually revealed through a series of leaked journals. These weren't spiritual texts, they were lab notes. The cult's core belief was that extreme pain was the gateway to human evolution. They were convinced that the soul, the very essence of a person, could be forcibly separated from the body through controlled, systematic trauma. The victims weren't killed right away. That wasn't the goal. They were kept alive, and more importantly, they were kept awake. The documents described procedures with chilling detachment. Limbs restrained for days on end to induce stress, sensory deprivation chambers to shatter the mind, and repeated surgical incisions made without anesthesia. They didn't call it torture. They did refinement. Through every single document, every journal entry, and every witness testimony, one name appeared again and again: Dr. Malcolm Vera. He was a former neurologist, a brilliant mind whose medical license had been revoked years earlier for a string of severe ethics violations. Survivors and former cult members all say he was the one leading the procedures. He would stand over the tables, scalpel in hand, while his followers, the members of the Ascension Circle, watched intently. They were learning, they were taking notes. To Dr. Verex, the people on his table weren't patients or victims. He referred to them only as containers, vessels for the soul he was trying to set free. In 2016, the story broke wide open. A single USB drive, plain and unmarked, was mailed anonymously to a journalist known for tackling dangerous stories. There was no return address. On that drive was the evidence everyone had been missing. There were photos of cold, windowless underground rooms. There were audio recordings where you could hear a person's breathing becoming slower, and then stopping. Altogether, there were surgical logs, meticulously kept, with the word success written next to the names of people who were officially listed as missing persons. And there was one short, haunting video clip. It showed a subject, their eyes wide with a terror beyond comprehension, whispering to the camera, "I can still feel myself, but I can't move." The journalist who received that drive died in a car accident before he could publish his findings. Officially, it was ruled a tragic accident, but backups of the drive had already been made, and they started to leak onto the dark corners of the internet. The files told an even more disturbing story. They contained emails and financial records that showed a complex web of funding, routed through anonymous shell corporations. The money trail led back to government grants that were officially labeled as behavioral resilience research. The horrifying realization began to set in. The Ascension Circle wasn't hiding from the government. The government was studying them. Over the 15 years of their operation, only 3 people are known to have escaped the compound. Each of them, interviewed separately years apart, described the exact same final ritual. After weeks or months of refinement, the subjects who had endured the most were brought into a stark, white room. It was empty except for a single chair and a bank of blinding floodlights overhead. The doctor would enter and ask just one question: Do you still feel human? The survivor said those who answered yes, those who still clung to their identity, were never seen again. They never left that room. Then, in 2009, it all came to an abrupt end. The main compound, the center of all the experiments, burned to the ground. The official cause of the fire was listed as a faulty electrical wire. Investigators reported that no bodies were recovered from the ashes. In the aftermath, authorities claimed the cult had been a myth, a local legend spun out of a few unconnected disappearances. They said the Ascension Circle never existed. But the locals who live near the charred remains of the site tell a different story. They say that shortly after the fire, government trucks came in the middle of the night and sealed the entrances to the vast network of tunnels beneath the property with tons of solid concrete. Miles and miles of them, just erased. But the story doesn't end there. It's not a piece of history. Missing persons reports that are eerily similar to the old ones still appear today in different towns, under different names. The ads use the same wording, the same empty promises of money and enlightenment, and among the most recent leaked documents, there are plans for a new phase. It has a different name, and the locations have moved, but the goal is the same. The experiments are ongoing. They say most cults want your belief. They want your faith, your money, your devotion. This one was different. The Ascension Circle wanted evidence. They wanted cold, hard proof that a human being could be systematically broken, their mind shattered and their body brutalized, and yet, somehow, remain alive. A consciousness trapped in a ruined vessel. And if you're watching this right now, wondering how something so monstrous could stay hidden for so long, just ask yourself one question. How many missing people in this world were simply labeled as unimportant? If this story unsettled you, it's because parts of it are still happening. The files didn't stop leaking. They're still recruiting. Subscribe and follow for more.